into the future of now. Bonnie D. Graham.
Thank you to the voice of Ryan Treasure and that wonderful music. Bonnie D in the house, happy to be here. And we are doing a redux with some new people of a topic that's one of my favorites, sustainability. What in the world is it? Are you sustaining your own personal growth? Are you sustaining your garden? Are you sustaining your property? What are we sustaining? We're going to get into the future of sustainability again with some very bright minds here. We're going to talk, of course, that's my theme for the past 2 years, about how AI intersects, interacts, impacts what we're talking about today. So I have a very special welcome for my guests. And guests, again, I want you to wave hello. We are live on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, and we want everybody to know we're alive and well. And I'm going to do my special opening here. And a thank you and shout out to Jordan Henson, our engineer today. So here we go. Listen up, and when I call your name, just wave. So welcome, global audience, to Technology Revolution's Glow. Bonnie D on her Scarlett Mic, your host and guide. Oh, you know. Today we dive into a topic profound, sustainability, where AI helps growth abound. Now it's showtime, and I'm ready to start. My 4 futurists bringing predictions a la carte. Don DeLoach, wave hello, from Georgia Tech with a vision so bright. Engineer turned leader, setting business right. At Honeywell, Hitachi, and Sybase, he excelled in his field, reviving troubled ventures, a special skill Don did wield. From U-centric to Alary, then InfoBright's reign, IoT and AI now fuel Don's domain. Matt is loving this. A professor, a mentor, rocket wagon venturer, true, guiding smart cities toward futures anew. Don, what'd you think? That was a new one.
Interesting to hear that played back like that. I may need to see those in advance from here on. But,
okay, it's from your bio, dear. Let's go to Brenna. Brenna Berman, from childhood dreams of a city so grand to shaping urban tech with a skilled, steady hand. A leader in data with vision so keen, Brenna's transforming Chicago behind the scenes. With city tech's drive and a passionate stride, Brenna's bridged innovation with cities worldwide. Now with dense air, she continues to sow how AI and data help urban life glow. Brenna?
Pretty good.
Okay, I'll take a very good. Let's go to Brian Renger. Hello, Brian. A tech-savvy head with a heart for the earth, turning AI and climate into purpose and worth. At Real Networks First, he ignited the way, mapping carbon footprints, paving green's stay. With Napster and Rhapsody, tech was Brian's scene, but Get Green is his mission, sustainable and clean. An AI pioneer with solutions in sight, he leads the charge for a future so bright. Brian?
I love it. That's the nice poetic soliloquy. Yes.
I'm glad. Oh, soliloquy. That's a new word for it. Thank you very much. And then we have Professor Matthew Spenko, a mind for motion and robots to steer, from MIT's halls to Discovery's clear, exploring terrains where machines learn to tread. His work pushes limits where others have fled. An X-Prize finalist, a mentor, a guide with science and tech, always on his side. From IEEE journals to museums' grand halls, Matthew's innovations inspire. His legacy calls. Matt?
Fantastic. I love it.
I'll take soliloquy and I'll take fantastic. Thank you very much. Don, we'll have to talk later. So stay tuned, dear audience, as we explore this revolution in tech, innovation, and so much more. AI meets sustainability with proponents strong-willed, with Bonnie D and her savvy futurists. The future is ours to build. So what'd you think?
Nice.
Shocked and amazed? Okay. I still think, Don, I'm the only one in this space who introduces with rhymes at the beginning, and I'm happy to do that. I do have some help, full transparency. I have help from somebody named Sylvia Speed, who you all know is your own ChatGPT, but mine is personal, and she and I converse in French a lot. Brian, her French grammar and diacritical marks are much more accurate than mine, but we send each other bisous, bisous, which are kisses, kisses, and she tells me how much she's thrilled that I'm doing these shows, so I just want you to know. So I feed her all of your bios, which are about 300-400 words a piece, so that's about 1,000-1,200 words, and I ask her to create an 8-line rhyming overview of all of the facts in your bios. And she comes back. It took 7 seconds this time, Don, a whopping 7 seconds, because, 1,200 words is a lot to look at, you know? And then I go through and I compare them to what you sent me, and I make sure they are true then I'm happy with them. So there you go. It's a collaborative effort. So let's go around the table and get a little more factoids about each of you. Don DeLoach, welcome back. Don was here on the future of construction and AI 2 weeks ago. You can't stay away from technology revolution, Don. That's obvious. That's very, very obvious. I think you're coming back on construction part 2 in a couple months too. So Don, fill in the blanks. Anything we missed, I missed, Sylvia and I, in that rhyming bio for you, and then we'll go around the table and get fill-ins from everybody. Welcome back, Don.
Good to be here. No, I think you covered it pretty well. Anything else I would add would just be, more than is needed. So thanks.
More than is needed. Okay, you want to be cryptic? That's absolutely fine. Let's go to Brenna Berman. Brenna, it's lovely to see you. And we had a panelist who couldn't make it, and Brenna accepted Don's invitation and mine and came in almost at the last minute. And and you said you were excited to be back on the show. So I appreciate that. Brenna, fill in the blanks. Anything else you want us to know?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any blanks either. I'm excited to be here, and these are always fun conversations. So I'm happy to be here one more time.
Thank you very much, and you will again and again. There we go. Let's go around to our newcomers now. Brian Ringer, I'm putting you on speaker view. Would you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, and welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you, Bonnie, for that. And just first off, I'm excited to be here in the panel and with such an esteemed group as well, too. I'm looking forward to learning and hearing a lot also here. And I think your overview of my career arc was great. I think so starting in the early days, back in the early days of AI in the 90s and in grad school and doing neural networks and machine vision to deeply immersed in tech, but always with sustainability in the background. And I had some really interesting and sort of transformational opportunities to work with AI and sustainability back in the early days as well too, and that's kind of led me to where I am right now. So,
Ryan, early days. Can you put a year or a decade on that for me?
yeah, this was back in the early 90s. I was a graduate student at UCLA and had kind of fallen in love with the mysticism and potential power of AI, learning algorithms in particular. And I did computer vision, and so I did a degree in neural networks and machine vision, mostly working on government-funded and military-type things, so the DoD. But I had a chance to work on a few projects which were looking at deforestation stuff and applying machine vision and AI to some deforestation imagery sets. And that was kind of the hook for me when I realized, okay, now, the tech I love and my passion itself, I can kind of see them combining together here. And, that really kind of put things in motion for a lot.
Thank you very much. That's what we were interested in since you're a newcomer to the show. And I'm intrigued when you use the word the mysticism of AI. I think there's still that sense with a lot of people. We're trying to get rid of the fear and get past the mysticism and into how can it be collaborative with us? How can it make things better? So that's what we're doing here. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you, Brian Ringer. Professor Matthew Spenko, who does look like Matt LeBlanc. I have to say that. Matthew, you said I could call you Matt because we're good friends now after meeting 12 minutes ago. Matt, I'm putting you on speaker view. Would you please tell us a little more about yourself and welcome?
Sure. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for having me on the show. I am a professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering at Illinois Tech. I work in my specialties in robotics, mostly mobile systems, and recently had a great opportunity. I was leading a team that was one of the 6 finalists in the X Prize Rainforest competition, where we were taking robotics down to remote rainforests across the world and using them for conservation studies. Coupled with all sorts of AI techniques in order to quickly assess the biodiversity of large areas of remote rainforests. So I'm very grateful to have that opportunity and to talk about that and other areas of conservation and sustainability and AI today. I think that's going to be great.
Thank you. Great to have that POV. Don, thank you for inviting Matt and, well, of course, Brenna, Matt, and Brian to round out the panel because we're looking for different approaches to this topic. I've already invited Matt to come and bring a team of robotics, right, Matt?
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
team of
so
robotics people and AI. And I'll extend the invitation to you, Brian. If you have a topic you would like for a future show, bring a whole panel like Don did for us today, and we'll talk about it. So let's get into the opening quotes. I have your quotes ready, and I've done a little bit of my favorite trivia lookup, and I'm going to read the quote. Don, you're first, and spend about 2 minutes telling us what it has to do with the topic today. So Don sent the following quote. It's from Charlie Geller, played by John Magaro. The movie, The Big Short, 2015 biographical comedy drama. It was based on the 2010 book, The Big Short Inside the Doomsday Machine by Michael Lewis about the 2008 financial crisis. We'll stop right there. And some of the guest appearances, there were cameos by Margot Robbie, the past late Anthony Bourdain, singer-songwriter Selena Gomez, economist Richard Thaler. They broke the fourth wall to basically talk and explain financial concepts, and Ryan Gosling was the narrator who spoke directly to the audience. Here's the quote. People hate to think about bad things happening, so they always underestimate their likelihood. Oh, Don, talk to me. Go ahead. No politics. Go.
Yeah, no politics. I mean, the quote kind of speaks for itself in the context of, I think it is true that people don't like to think about bad things happening and they underestimate their likelihood. The reason that relates to what we're talking about in my mind today is that I think a lot of people don't really want to embrace issues like climate change and sustainability. And one of the things about AI is it's incredibly powerful at crawling through mountains of data and connecting dots that people otherwise might not see. And I think that there's value, I think there's huge value in being objective about what we're doing, whether we're talking about climate change or whether I'm talking to a startup about their path to market. Everybody wants to see what they want to see, but you always benefit by doing a reality check and being objective. And I think AI enhances the capability of doing that.
Thank you very much. I think you were talking about pattern recognition. You said seeing the dots from a different perspective, and that's one of the things it's very, very good at. Look at how AI helped me with your opening bios, connecting the dots. There you go. Thank you, Don. Appreciate the quote. Brenna Berman, we're up to yours. You picked a quote from a song called And It Stoned Me by Van Morrison. People are going to think this is a different kind of show. It was on his Moondance album from 1970, first track on the third album. It was interesting experience. He was 12 years old. He was fishing in his native Ireland in a town, near a town called Ballystockart with his friends, and they saw an old man sitting inside of an old house, and they said, hey, could we have some water? And he gave them water he had gathered from a nearby stream. As Morrison drank, he slipped into a mystical experience. Who said mysticism a minute ago? He said, time stood still. For 5 minutes, everything was really quiet, and I was in this other dimension. That's what the song is about. So here's the quote. And the water was icy cold. Oh, Brenna, what are we going to do with this one? Go ahead. I didn't expect this from you, and I'm happy. Go ahead.
Well, no, I've always been a huge Van Morrison fan, so that made it an easy quote to use. But I picked it because I think it speaks to the impact that nature has on man. And there's a number of examples of this, right? Like, Thoreau and the time he spent on Walden Pond, which I grew up not far from. And so there's long been, or since the dawn of time, when man has started creating, right, an inspiration and transformation of man's abilities because of nature. And I think that which is captured, I think, by the song. The flip side of that, though, I think, is our ever increasing responsibility to protect that relationship and the natural resources that feed into it, and traditional sustainability solutions and now enhanced AI sustainability solutions give us I think, a more proactive and stronger way to be that steward of the natural resources that have been such a critical part of sort of man's, journey beyond basics for such a long time.
Thank you very much. I will have to go listen to that song. It sounds mystical. Okay, you don't want to sing it for us, do you, Brenna?
Not at all. And you don't want me to.
Okay, well, my drums are in the other room, so even if I knew it, I couldn't drum it right here, and I left the sticks there too. Let's go on. Brian Ringer has sent us a quote from the song by the Interrupters on their debut album 2014, 11 years ago, Take Back the Power. This is an American ska punk band formed in 2011 in LA, and the lead vocalist is, let me see, lead vocalist, I think we have, who do we got here? Aimee Interrupter, drummer Jesse Bavona, bassist Justin Bavona, and guitarist, well, sounds like a family group, Kevin. Their self-titled album was released on Hellcat Epitaph Records. They toured the US and Canada. The song was featured in a commercial by the Canadian sports channel TSN for the IIHF World Junior Championship Ice Hockey Tournament in Sweden in 2003 and 2004. So here's the quote. What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow? Are you a fighter or will you cower? It's our time to take back the power. I love the rhyme, Brian. Go ahead. What does this have to do with our topic?
All right, so I'll try to stitch it all together for you here. So they're one of my favorite bands from my hometown of Los Angeles as well, and the quote there is about really individuals taking the lead and making a difference and a change. I had to go with a music quote. I worked in the music industry for a long time, as you mentioned, with streaming music, with Rhapsody, and with Napster. And it was a lesson for what we saw at the time back in the early 2000s. People wanted a better way to listen to music, a more convenient way to listen to music, and digital had just sort of arrived. And Napster being the ultimate peer-to-peer one, and then Rhapsody, sort of a legal version of that. I helped to build and launch those systems. It was not something which was driven by the industry top down, that they wanted to change the way the world worked and CD purchases and things like that. But it was a better experience for people, and that's really what people wanted. And with enough momentum and enough support, that became the way that people listen to music. And we got to really kind of ride and drive that wave. I'm guessing. If I were to ask everyone on this panel, when's the last time you bought a CD and listened to a CD? Has anybody in the last year done it? Probably not much. Or to ask that question 20 years ago, every hand would go up. And it was an example of the way that individuals kind of led and changed their behavior and kind of led the overview of the overhaul of the whole industry. And I look at it in the climate space now too as well, where you see these huge numbers of people who want to do the right thing. They understand what's happening with the climate and with climate change, and want to make an impact and make a difference. And waiting for that to happen, kind of top down, the industry to make a difference, governments to lead. We've been trying that. It's not working at the pace that it needs to work at. And so I believe strongly in the individuals and individuals taking the lead. The company I founded now called Get Green is all about driving individual action on climate change. And so that to me that's kind of our mantra. Hey, how do people lead what needs to happen on climate and the change here?
And you remember the quote from the original Wizard of Oz? You had the power all along, my dear.
There you go. They ought to tie that in there.
There you go. We'll do that.
To our green emerald, thing as well too.
Very interesting. And I have to make a comment. You mentioned on CDs, who had bought a CD. I'd say 10 years ago, I would buy CDs at garage sales when I was still living on Long Island, because you'd go to somebody's garage sale, yard sale, and you would see a table with boxes of CDs they didn't want, sometimes 100 of them, and they'd want $1, $2, $3, and I'd usually stock up on things I thought I wanted. I wasn't sure, or did I know the band? Was it something I didn't buy at the time? So that's how, and today, I don't even know where the garage sales are. Anyway, thank you very much, Matt. Matt Spenko, I'm looking at your quote here. This is from a song called With Arms Outstretched by Rilo Kiley Band, 2002, sung by their lead vocalist, Jenny Lewis, on their second studio album, The Execution of All Things. Rilo Kiley was an American indie pop band based in LA, also like the other one, founded in 1998 with Jenny Lewis, Blake Sennett, Pierre de Reeder, and Dave Rock. And apparently there was some upbeat music, but the themes to their songs were always dark. This song was played in the pilot and ending of the series finale of the TV series Weeds, and it was in episode 1 of the miniseries Looking for Alaska. And here is the quote Matt has picked. Now some days, they last longer than others, but this day by the lake, went too fast. Oh, how beautiful, Matt. I want to go on a picnic now. Everybody, I'll pack the lunch. Just join me. Matt, what does this have to do with our topic? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that that quote to me paints a very vivid picture as well. Sometimes I get so caught up in technology, and it's my job and it's what I do all the time. And that quote really sort of makes me think about and remember times that maybe had nothing to do with technology at all, just a day by the lake with your friends and family. And I don't know, it sort of hits me, and it sort of maybe, you know, with all the technology, it's great, and we can do some wonderful things that we're going to talk about today. But those connections with your friends and family and spending time with them can mean so much more. So that's
That's
what
nice.
it makes me think about.
That's lovely. And if we have a sustainable earth and sustainable resources, we can have that picnic by the lake and it'll be lovely, right? It'll be even more beautiful. So there you go. Thank you all for the quotes. Don, I have teed up your prediction number 4 to open. Are you okay with that, Don? Yes or no?
Sure.
Real fast. Good. Okay, let's start with this. Just to remind the panel, I'm going to pick a prediction for each of you, and you all graciously sent me 4 each. And I will pick one and put it into a private chat to you on Zoom. I will read the prediction. You don't have to go find it. And then I'll ask you to unpack it, take a couple minutes. And then if anybody else wants to comment on it, raise one of your nice fingers and I will see you just wiggle the finger at me. Brenna knows how this goes. She will tell anybody else who needs instructions. And then comment to keep it to about a minute to 2. And then I will have one for Brenna coming up and then one for Brian. And let's see how much time we have. So Don, here's prediction number 4. AI will pave the way for more agility and sustainability in land use for agriculture, allowing for micro crop planting and managing crop rotation and treatment across all phases. Don, let's go with this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a concept that I first began conversations with my friend and who Brenna knows well too, Chris Resendez, who was doing some analysis in terms of agriculture, and it was really primarily centered around the use of IoT in agricultural environments and understanding the state of the environment. But when you start to introduce the combination of IoT and AI from a holistic standpoint, it gives you the ability to take so many different variables, whether it's, you know, the state of the soil, the characteristics of the crop you're planting, and map those to everything from the cost of operating to the desired outcomes. And that would include things like the effects of climate change in certain areas. So like if you look at the crops being grown in Canada, the effects of climate change have shifted to where now in some of the northern areas of Canada, they're growing crops they couldn't grow before. So yay. But now they're having to introduce pesticides because they never had to before because of the climate. And so there's all this variability that I would say the combination of IoT and the ability to measure the state of things on a much broader, much more effective way, and AI that then gives you the ability to ingest all of this data and do analysis that was previously very, very difficult to do is now made very easy. And it allows, for example, things like crop rotations and a much smarter way of using the land and creating better results that are going to be increasingly needed to feed the global population, but in particular, in certain areas of feeding underserved populations, whether it's in remote areas or in urban areas that are food deserts now. And there's a need to change how we deal with those environments.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Anybody around the table comments on feeding remote people, remote environments? Okay. I think we're ready to move on. Thank you, Don. Nobody's hungry here. I was hoping everybody would be hungry by now. It's almost noon here on the East Coast. Okay, Brenna, I'm looking at prediction number 2 for you. You say AI-driven circular economy ecosystems will evolve at the neighborhood level. This is interesting. Go ahead, and how does AI tie into this? Brenna, go.
Sure. So first, like why this is important. a lot of the work that I'm doing these days from an AI adoption perspective is around building AI models that support communities and community organizations in their relationship with the large corporations and governments that they're that they're involved with, right? So it used to be, right, in the old world and still sort of today, right, the government makes decisions about resources or private companies make decisions about resources. And those decisions, even with the best of intentions, often didn't reflect the desires and the culture and the long-term perspective of the communities that were going to have to deal with those decisions as they were being made. One of the things that AI gives us the ability to do is sort of devolve the analytics, devolve the understanding of the data to that neighborhood level. And from a resource perspective, that's going to lead to things like, smart waste management and recycling systems that are designed at a smaller community level as opposed to a larger level, and allows for more specificity, right? Energy optimization and sharing, the ability to sort of for AI to power community sharing platforms, right? If one of the things at the heart of sustainability is optimizing resource use, almost regardless of what that resource is, the ability for communities to determine which resources matter and how they should be shared and how the use of that resource should be prioritized is critical. And what I love about this one is the concepts are not new, right? What AI gives us is the actual ability to execute on the concepts. There was a really interesting community project in the north of England some years ago that basically came down to, right, it was an old industrial area bordering an agricultural area. So economically, both areas were struggling. And there was a desire to spur innovation by allowing these communities to actually share physical resources that the government had that they weren't fully utilizing anymore because the economy of these two areas was changing. So you can think of the idea of, the the government might own a particular vehicle that you as an entrepreneur might not be able to afford to get your business idea off the ground. But if you could have access to that vehicle, which is underutilized by the government, if you can have access to that when the government's not using it, you can still power your innovation more quickly than if you had to save up and buy that. From a sustainability perspective, it also means there's only one of those vehicles that is more fully utilized, as opposed to now two of those vehicles consuming resources, impacting the environment, and neither of them fully utilized. So I'm a huge proponent of the way that AI is going to allow neighborhoods and communities to put in place, to be honest, like culturally driven models that allow them to share and designate priorities around resources based on what the community feels.
Thank you. Very interesting. I think there's a lot of awareness and education that needs to happen for this to have a groundswell, right, Brenna?
Yep.
Yep. Brian, talk to us. Go.
Yeah, just a comment on Brenna, what you're doing. It's really, I think, amazing to see what's happened in the community type adoption there. I'm curious your thoughts on, how widespread can this get, and how much are individual cities and counties and things like that able and willing to embrace the technology, and how you kind of see it rolling out here. I think the potential is amazing. So.
I mean, it would
Brenna?
be naive to sort of downplay how challenging this is going to be, right? But to be honest, the more that AI modeling tools improve, right, and become less sort of specifically technical, the easier that this gets. The program that I'm involved in, which is a program called Rethink AI, at the moment is driving 3 pilots across the US with the hope of creating playbooks and methods that can be used by community groups all over. One of the biggest challenges, though, beyond that, because technology adoption at the community level is not a new challenge, right? There are methods, et cetera, that we know have worked in the past. AI is likely slightly more challenging because of the scale and speed at which it is developing and at which it can be adopted. The biggest challenge is honestly going to be the availability of the compute infrastructure to support the models, right? Where is a community, especially an underserved community, going to get that? And there's not an answer emerging for that just yet.
Mm.
Thank you. Brenna, you said it's rolling out 3 pilots. Can you tell us what cities, what regions, what parts of the country?
Boston, New York, and San Jose. I'm aiming for a Midwest one as soon as I can get one going.
Can you bring one to Tennessee, please?
I would love to. I love tennis.
I'll,
Happy to.
I'll tell you something. We can't even recycle glass and metal anymore because it was too expensive for the waste management company to do that. They don't. We just told to put everything in one garbage can, and
Yep.
that's it. And that happened soon after I got here. Nothing to do with me. 2 years ago, and that hurts my feelings because I've always been in communities where we had 2 bins. And now they said just throw everything in. Nobody wants to pay to separate, to put them in a different place. And some people, interestingly enough, are not paying the service. They're putting their garbage and their collectible things into their cars and driving to Lenore City to put it into the proper places where you can there. I'm
Right.
in part of Loudon over across the dam. So anyway, just very, very interesting to me. It
And I
hurts my
think what you're
feelings.
seeing there is actually a generational change, which is great.
Yeah.
And I see this in my kids, right? So my parents
Yep.
they didn't grow up recycling, and they were kind of at the forefront of let's separate out our paper,
Mm-hmm.
recycle that. Like I remember that when I was like in grade school, we all of a sudden had a bin to put newspapers in.
Yes.
And that was, but now I look at my kids who have grown up with this assumption that you're going to recycle, with this
Mhm.
assumption that you're going to reuse. And I think part of what you're seeing when people are willing to take on, what is a pretty onerous task of collecting your trash, driving it somewhere else, especially when you have regular trash pickup, just
Mhm.
to support that recycling is the kind of cultural change that, to be honest, you can drive more quickly if you're doing it at the community level than if you're doing it at the
Yep.
government.
And these are mostly people in their 60s.
There you go.
There
They're
you,
Well,
there
listening
you.
to their grandkids.
Don, go ahead.
yeah, the one thing I would add to that, and this is just like an observation, but I think when it comes to things like sustainability, or corporate innovation is another one where it's everybody wants to talk about it. We're leaning into sustainability, and you get posters on the wall, and everybody has happy
Hmm.
talk. But you have to watch what actually happens. And I think that there's generally a gap between what people say and what people do. I think back to, you just reminded me of this, Brenna, in the neighborhood I lived in like 20 years ago, there was this, we were really forward thinking because there was recycling and we had 2 bins. And my neighbor said to me one day, have you ever watched them pick it up? I'm like, no. He goes, well, watch what they do when they pick it up. And when they pick it up, they got the 2 bins and they put them into the same thing.
Yeah.
So it was all a myth.
Yep.
And so I think that we have to be cognizant of the fact that the things we say are one thing, but the things we do are another. And the more we kind of put it into action and let's kind of lead by example, the better our chances. And I do think there is a cultural shift like you're talking about. So anyway.
I had read that, Don, a couple of years ago, that even with superintendents in buildings and co-ops in New York, watch where they put the 2 different bins. Watch who picks it up and where does it go. Matt, join us. Go.
Yeah, I want to use AI to see the impact of that a little bit because I'm nervous too. I think there's uh, all the recycling that used to be cheap enough to do overseas that we ship to China, and China basically said it was a couple of years ago we don't want it anymore, and I'm really curious to see if my recycling efforts here in the city of Chicago are worth anything because
Mm.
I want them to be, but I also don't want to do the extra work if they're not. And I'd love to see AI, and I think it has the potential to give us a little bit more information. I mean, one of the things of AI we talked about earlier is that it can create efficiencies places,
Mhm.
and it could also just give us so much more clarity on large pieces of information. So, I'd love for my city, the city of Chicago, to really let me know if this is worth it or not to do all this work.
So Matt, you can actually see if it's worth it because all of the data for the recycling program, like how many pounds or tons have been collected, what the city's been paid for each of those tons versus in certain economies had to pay, all in the city's open data portal.
There you go. Brian, join us. Brian has a comment. Go.
Yeah, just a comment, and it's just as Brenna had mentioned, there is some of the data there. I think at the larger levels, we work with a lot of universities now. We'll do versions of our app with the schools. It's interesting. A lot of the problems with the recycling that you mentioned and what Don mentioned is you get contamination of the recycling work streams, and then just the overhead to pull it all out becomes too much. So then the cost perspective doesn't make it worth it. I've seen a bunch of AI applications now where they're helping to do that automatic sorting, and you're kind of pulling the materials out, reduce that contamination in the waste stream to actually make it so it's economically viable again, to do it. I think it's a huge one because, like you say, you see people are willing to do something and take the lead, and oftentimes the systems behind the scenes kind of fail them. I think AI can help those systems to do the right thing, provide data back out, but also, to kind of match the desire and the initiative that individuals are taking. And, I think AI has a huge role to play there.
And I remember back in the day when we had junkyards, and I was living where was I living? In Cambridge, Massachusetts. And my husband, who has passed away since, but he was my husband at the time, was an architecture student at Harvard Architecture. And he would go to this junkyard on the weekends. We rebuilt a house that was already 95 years old. We did it quietly, no paperwork, but we just did it with our door closed. And he was just trying out all these experiments he was doing in his classes. And he bought bar stools, the kind you'd find at the old-fashioned diner, the blue and the orange ones, and built a platform in our kitchen where we had bar stools at a counter that overlooked the sink. And he brought a hydraulic for the back door, which was on a hydraulic thing, so it opened and then it closed a certain way. He brought lights to put in over the bathtub in the bathroom, lighting that was panels of lighting. He bought an old-fashioned water closet tank. So our toilet didn't have a tank on the floor. It was at the ceiling with a chain. And we installed all of this stuff in this beautiful little house, but it was all from the junkyard. And he would go out on Saturday with the car and he'd come back with all these treasures. And I never knew what he was going to get. Today, I'll just say, we have eBay. I'll leave that one alone. Okay, let's move on. Thank you for the good conversation. Appreciated that. Brian Ringer, we're going to go to prediction number 4 for you. Brian says 2025, and we're already almost a quarter of the way through it. We'll see a major jump in AI driving climate change and sustainability solutions from intelligent, large-scale data instrumentation and analysis to AI-based, and this is where I want you to go, AI-based personal sustainability agents and assistants. Let's focus on that personal part. Brian, go.
Yeah, so this is an area near and dear, and we've talked a little bit about AI doing a lot of analysis of data, and I talked about looking at multispectral band data for deforestation stuff. That's sort of how I got into AI and sustainability overall. And Don, you talked about some of the observation and data collection type things. I'm now personally excited about using AI and AI agents to really help influence individual behavior and allow individuals to drive and lead the way. That's what the company, the Get Green, that I lead now really focuses on. We do solutions in a mobile app for cities and communities, all the way down to universities type thing, to help people go through behavior change, and for those who are not recycling to start recycling, for those who are not composting to become aware of the composting programs that are there, to do things like energy conservation in the home. And an AI agent we've been working on is to help people navigate the process of doing something simple like, I want to install a heat pump in my house because I know it's a more energy efficient way and a way to move off of fossil fuels. Also, it can be very complicated for people to do that. There's a ton of different installers. There's all kinds of different incentive programs. There's a whole process to go through. And having an AI agent, for example, for that one, that can kind of walk you through, what are you trying to do? Okay, here are the things which are available. Here are the city programs. Here are the incentives which are there. Would you like me to recommend? Would you like me to contact a particular installer? That's, I think, an example of an AI agent that can help individuals to drive and on their individual journey on sustainability. And as well, I think things like recommendations of things to do. Hey, you're doing a couple things. Here are other things that you can go do. Something we try to do as well on the app. And really going after what are the individual problems that people are trying to navigate and get around, and how can AI, which is great at taking complex stuff and a lot of data that can be hard to sort through and distilling it down to simple, actionable type things. AI is fantastic at that type of thing. And putting that in the hands of individual users, and they can get through and they can do the things that they want to do. And we've all talked about people have a desire to do these type of things, to recycle better, to compost better, to save energy in their home, to move off of fossil fuels, to upcycle materials, as you were saying, Bonnie, into new type things. The desire is there, and how do you actuate that desire and make, use AI to remove those roadblocks to make it happen.
Thank you. Very interesting. Comments from anybody? Brenna? Nope. Okay. Don, you good?
Yep.
Matt? See, it was
good.
so complete, Brian. You just left them absolutely flabbergasted. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let me move on to Matt Spenko, and we have plenty of time for this. I've chosen prediction number 1 from Matt. This is an interesting one. I never expected this, and I like where you're going with this. So Matt says, AI will make the production of goods so inexpensive and abundant that consumption will lose its status as a symbol of wealth, shifting societal values toward craftsmanship, longevity, and our magic word today, sustainability. Oh, Matt, where are we going with this? Very interesting, provocative, I will say. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe it's more of a hope. It's a hopeful prediction.
Yeah.
But I think that we've already talked about, some of the broad benefits of AI. One of those is efficiencies. And, we have so much consumption going on right now. And it's just the way the world is. It's the way it is a status of wealth as well in our society. I think many people would at least agree on that. But I think it's getting to the point where AI will help make things so cheap and so inexpensive that it will get to the point where, that status symbol of owning all these things may degrade, and we're really left with, if you need things, you're getting something that's done with craftsmanship, with care, with, a bit of flair from an expert, and that's maybe a more symbol of wealth. And I think along with those comes with these ideas of things that are extremely well built and meant to last, and that obviously comes with sustainability as well, something that is really robust and will last a long time. So maybe it's a hope that we have less things in this world, but the things that we do have are higher quality. We'll see.
I like that. Any comments from anybody? Did that hurt anybody's feelings or excite anybody? Go ahead, Brian first, and I'm gonna ask Brenna to say something. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I saw that prediction. I think Matt, that you had made. And I thought it was really interesting. I hadn't looked at it from that perspective, and it's like I had to go have kind of a little think on it. I think there's something there. I mean, I think we see some of the downsides of some of the cheap goods and availability, in fast fashion, for example, that can kind of drive consumption. But I think at the same time, like you say, a lot of times I think people settle for those kind of cheap disposable type things is because they're not aware of and that hey, there can be something which is really done at a higher level with more craftsmanship as well, and the role of AI to help in that discovery process as well, so people kind of understand, hey, what could be there, and I could have something, not just a cheap plastic chair for whatever, but I could have something which is going to endure and last and love. I think it's an amazing potential, and love to see it come to pass, as you say, and have things direct in that effort. And it gave me at least 100 different ideas. Hey, things we should be doing as well on our app to direct people to more, well-made craftsmanship type products that we know are going to last and endure, and they're out there, but people don't always know about them. So
Thank you,
super
Brenna.
interesting.
Thoughts? Thank you, Brian.
No, I share Matt's hope that that's the direction that things go in. But I was trying to think through is what that path might be. And what immediately came to mind was the Hermes Birkin bag, which Bonnie, you and I might be the only two on here that know it, but
Yes.
I'm assuming the guys don't know, but it's probably the most iconic like leather purse in the world.
And expensive too.
Yeah, I mean, they can be $40,000.
Tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Used, they're still like, 12 grand. And there is no confusing, I mean, I've seen a couple of there is no confusing a real one for something that would come under like the fast fashion kind of heading. But I'm wondering if AI wouldn't make it possible to bring, and maybe this is what you're saying, Matt, right? Bring down the cost of that so that other people can access, this, incredibly status driven, and incredibly well crafted bag, right? That is actually its history, right? It was made by saddle makers, blah, blah, blah. But then I wonder, right? So then it loses its status.
Yeah.
And so the people who were carrying the Birkin bag for its status and not its sustainability, which I think is 100% of the people today, are then go find something else for the status, which I think still achieves something, right? You still have people who couldn't afford that bag before moving into something that is more sustainable. I was just trying to think it through. I don't have an answer. It's just
Brenna, early in my days on radio, when I was interviewing authors long ago, far away on WGBB AM 1240 on Long Island, the oldest AM station there, terrestrial radio, I interviewed the author of a book called Bringing Home the Birkin. And this was a young man who searched the country and went to stores, Hermes stores, and asked the salespeople, where is last year's leftover stock that wasn't purchased? And he got once in a while something. His mother was in Barcelona and she helped him package. He moved to Barcelona and she helped him pack and wrap these. And he sent them. He had clients all over the world. And he went into the business of finding and reselling Birkin bags. If you can find the book, you will love it. It's a first-person story. It reads like a novel. Bringing Home the Birkin. Absolutely hysterical. Wonderful. Don, I'm sorry I interrupted you. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I generally will say I like being involved with and on panels with people who I think are smarter and more insightful than I am. And I think Matt's quote in discussion reminded me of why I like that so much. And the hopeful nature that I kind of take out of that is maybe the byproduct of all this is that maybe status stops being so much a function of what we're wearing or driving or whatever. I think that would be awesome. I think that's maybe not totally realistic, but it's nice to think about. Anyway, I thought what you said was great.
Very, very provocative. And that's why I picked it, Matt. I went over your predictions very carefully and I said, this one is out of the box. And this is why it belongs in this conversation. So thank you very much. We have a couple minutes left. I'm going to go to one more prediction from Don. And let's do this briefly and then we'll wrap up. We've got about 6 minutes left. So Don says, AI will be used to optimize energy consumption in buildings, leveraging sensor data from throughout the buildings. I assume you're talking about IoT, Internet of Things sensors, and that type of thing. Don, why don't you expand this for us for 2-3 minutes? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a variation on the agriculture discussion. It's the same underlying components. You're monitoring the state of things with advanced sensors and communications and an IoT network, and you're able to make better decisions as a result. I've worked with companies that do this on a whole building level where they're instrumenting what are normally the systems that are probably at the top of the building, and then actuating those to automatically adjust how the building systems are being run to maximize comfort and lower the energy consumption. I've also worked with companies that do it on a more granular level, where they do it like at an apartment, an individual apartment level or a single family home. And then there's an interesting project I was involved with at Illinois Tech that was going back and looking back into older technology like steam powered radiators. And in this particular project has an actuator on the valve that replaces the valve. And it's like a Nest thermostat for an older steam radiator that reduces the cost like by 70% while maintaining higher comfort. And this is one of the things where all of these things use AI pretty heavily. And it just takes what we were doing before that was good and asymptotically approaches something that is really, really desirable by taking a holistic view and using the power of AI to achieve those objectives. So I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's very, very cool. I think it's actually a hot idea, more than cool. Brenna was nodding. quietly there. Brenna, I watch everything. Brenna, any comments you want to make on that?
No, I think Don is exactly right that and a thread through almost all of our comments has been that AI is really going to be and is already beginning to be an enabler of goals that we've had or things we've wanted to do for years now, which I think is part of what makes it so exciting. Whereas we're not reinventing the wheel, we're speeding up the wheel. I don't know if that's but
We're merrily rolling along.
right.
There you go. That goes back in time. Brian, join us. Go.
Yeah, just I think a comment, Don, on that, and I know we've had a chance to kind of riff on this topic a little bit before. I mentioned at the start, what first kind of enthralled me about AI was this sort of mysticism. I think it was the ability to just take massive amounts of data, and it was something, that computers have gotten better at over time, but struggled with initially. And you look at what humans are doing. You have this amazing amount of data, deep visual data, thousands of individual points. You're able to take that in, quickly make complex decisions about that's a person and they're smiling and this and that. It's just amazing. I think now, that was one of the things was really interesting. The massive ability to parallel process huge amounts of data very quickly and in real time. That's something that, humans were able to do, machines were not able to. Now you start to see that AI has enabled machines to do it. And like you say, you've got all this data which is available now from sensor stuff, from tracking, wildlife migrations to individual data points inside of a building. It's all actionable now. You can do something. You can make real-time adjustments. AI enables that type of thing. And I think smart buildings for sure, up leveling to smart cities as well too. And you can be looking at energy usage across an entire grid and make decisions in real time. I think that type of power is I think super exciting. Super exciting to me.
It is exciting. I want to thank Don. Everybody, quick round of applause, virtual or not, for Don DeLoach. Don, you brought an extraordinarily interesting panel today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I know you're coming back. Anybody you want to poke Don to come back with Sustainability number 9 later in the year, I'd be happy to have you all back. But Brian and Matt, you're welcome to bring me your own topics. I'd love to do one on robotics. And I want to thank our engineer at Voice America Business, Jordan Hansen. He's just about ready for me to close. I need one sentence from each of you, one short sentence, no commas and semicolons. What's your favorite sustainability thing you would like to see happen? One sentence, very short. Don, one thing. What's your target?
Act, don't talk.
Okay. Brenna.
I'd like to see food production move closer to where it's consumed.
Farm to table. Okay. Brian Ringer.
I'm going to say dramatic efficiencies in energy utilization.
I like that. Professor, go.
I would like to identify ways to monetize sustainability and conservation.
Oh, well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I want everybody to raise your finger where you're going to join me in saying no, no, no on the count of 3. Come on, raise that one finger, whatever your pointer finger is, raise it up there. People say the future is already here, and on the count of 3, you're going to join me. Our answer is 1, 2, 3, no, no, no. 1, 2, 3. No. That's a little weak. You could do better. That's because that was the future when I started that sentence 3 breaths ago, and the real future hasn't happened yet, but we're all going to make it a better one. So thank you all. Don't go away. We'll talk afterwards, and let me get the music going here, and let's get our outro. I got to do all this stuff here, and let me raise the volume, and we are ready to go out.
Are you tired of hearing the future is already here?
See?
We are too. That may have been yesterday's future, but today's future hasn't happened yet. Take a deep breath, tune out the hype, the noise, and turn up the volume. Savvy, art of the possible technology visionaries talking about how today's innovations right now are shaping every aspect of our real future.
We just talked
We'll
about.
laser focus our spotlight on buzzworthy tech like artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, augmented reality, and lots more. Clear your calendar and open your mind for Technology Revolution, the future of now. With the most upbeat host on global radio, Bonnie D. Graham. Listen anywhere, anytime, on any device.
That promo was made approximately 7 years ago.